Good morning, Hebrews and Shebrews. This oil-filled disciple doing a daily reading. I know I've been slacking a little bit, but I've been trying to get me a little rest in after my incident. This morning we'll be reading Proverbs chapter 7, for this being August 7th, 2019. So hopefully this message will bless you, encourage you, and even frustrate you. So let's get busy and let's read some word. Let's get us some breakfast in this morning. It says, "My son, guard my words and treasure my commands with you. Guard my commands and live. My Torah as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers and write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding a close friend. To guard you against strange women, against the foreigner who flatters her with words." Okay, now as we read on in this, I want you to understand that as we read and I say her, we're going to be talking about the church. And most of this is going to be the false church, the false ideas, the idolatry and whatnot. And I will come back and we'll explain a little bit. So verse 6. "For at the window of my house I looked through my lattice, and I saw among the simple." The window of your house is your eyes to your soul and your heart. Okay? It's where wisdom and knowledge is stored up. "I perceived among the youth a young man lacking heart, passing through the street near her corner. And he went the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and darkened night." Okay, beginning of life to the end of your life, and all in the middle. Feel me? Verse 10. "And look, a woman met him, dressed like a whore, with a hidden heart." False church, churchianity, and religiosity. "She was boisterous and stubborn," Christianity. "Her feet did not stay at her own home. Now in the street, now in the square, in every corner she lurks. And she took hold of him and kissed him. She hardened her face and said to him, 'Slaughterings of peace offerings are with me. Today I have paid my vows. Therefore I come out to meet you, to earnestly seek your face, and I found you. I have spread my bed with coverings, colored linens of Egypt. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloe, and cinnamon, counterfeits. Come, let us take our fill of carnal love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took a bag of silver with him, and he comes home on the day of the covering." That will be the day Jesus comes back. Our judgment. Verse 21. "With her many words she leads him astray. With her smooth lips she seduces him. He goes after her immediately. Like an ox goes to the slaughter, and as in chains a fool to the punishment. Like an arrow strikes through his liver, like a bird rushing to a snare, and did not know it would take his life. And now listen to me, you children. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways, and do not go astray in her paths. For many are the wounded she has caused to fall, and numerous all her killed ones. Her house is the way of Sheol, going down to the rooms of death." All right, as we watch this glorious sunrise this morning, contemplate on those words. Think about what Solomon is saying here. From the beginning of time till now, and until Jesus comes back, man has not been satisfied with God due to his sinful nature, but selfish nature. When man begins to think that God is absent, we begin creating things to pacify our lusts and need for God. But we do it wrongly when we do so. For one, God is never absent from our lives. Our problem is we get so busy and wrapped up in life that we think God is absent. And in that case, just like Aaron and the Israelites, while Moses was up on the mountain getting the word from God, they made a false idol, the calf. We do the same thing when we think God is not present in our lives. We we do the same thing. We make golden calves. Now, it's not a literal golden calf that we create, but any time that we have set for ourselves the ways of the world rather than the ways of God, we're no different than Aaron and the Israelites creating the golden calf. Back to verse 10, it says, "And look, a woman met him dressed like a whore." When I look at adultery, back in the Hebrew and the Greek, regardless of whether I'm in the New Testament or the Old Testament, and I look at adultery, we in this culture automatically assume infidelity in a marriage. But are we not the bride of Christ? Are we not given to Christ as the bride? So when we seek after false ideals and false religion, that is adultery, and that you can anytime you read the word adultery, go look it up. Greek if you're in the New Testament, Hebrew in the Old Testament, go look it up and get a little bit in depth. They'll give you a couple of different Strong's concordance numbers, and it'll actually revert back to apostasy. And apostasy is departing from God. Turning your back to God is apostasy. And when we seek after other gods, that is adultery against God. And so when we begin to look at it in that way, it kind of changes the fact, Sorry, give me some coffee in me this morning. So the false church, verse 5 says to guard against the strange woman. That's a false church. That's today it's Christianity. And regardless of what culture we lived in, what culture man has been in throughout the centuries, we always see that humankind is looking for something tangible to hold on to, that sounds good, feels good, looks good, tastes good, smells good, according to God, looking for a God, and that's little g most of the time. What angered God with the Israelites all throughout the Old Testament, and turning from his ways and seeking after their own lusts and desires. Well, we see no difference today, and what frustrates me is otherwise intelligent people make these claims, these statements of faith that is straight up heresy. I see it over and over again. People, when confronted with sin, basically do like the Pharisees and stick their fingers in their ears and claim, I'm good, I have God. No, you don't. Nor do I have God. God has me, first of all. First and foremost, God has us. Jesus bears us up. Jesus holds on to us. It says no one or nothing can snatch us out of his grasp. We don't have Jesus. You feel me? Jesus has us. So when we get our own selfishness out of the way, then we can begin to see this. But just go look on Facebook or Twitter, I guess, or whatever social media, and post something or see something posted about sin, and man automatically gets angry. I was looking at one yesterday, looking at a post yesterday where a guy claimed about sin. And this guy has like, I don't know, a couple thousand followers. He's actually a rapper. I won't list his name. But he claimed something about some sin, and it was amazing about how many comments I see on there of, I thought you were better than that. We actually thought you were different, and we loved you, but we'll no longer be following you, and on and on and on. Simply because he confronted sin. Sometimes the messenger gets blamed for claiming God's word to the point where, well, back in your past, we know what you used to be, and we know what you claim to be perfect now all of a sudden, and yada yada yada, on and on and on. What difference does it make if the messenger is spotless, blemish free, or otherwise? If the message pertains to you and the message convicts you, and God is calling you out of your sin, why would you just immediately revert to blaming the sinner for saying such? It'd be no different than if a serial killer busted through my door at 2 o'clock in the morning and drugged me and my wife out because there was a fire in the house, and me claiming, hey dude, you're a serial killer, put me back in that house. You got no right to take me out of there and save my life. Who are you? You see what I'm saying? When we begin to look at this logically, it changes the whole view of how we can perceive our walk with God. Well, we don't like that, We don't like truth, and we don't like being confronted with our sin. It pierces our heart, and like I made a statement, I believe is in one of my messages at our congregation here a while back, a couple weeks ago. Men have two emotions, happy and pissed off. And the deal with that is when you hurt me, I get mad. When you do something to me, I get mad. When you step on my toes, I get mad. Now that comes in the form of sadness and hurt and all that, but really our men's two emotions are happy and mad. Where women have a wide variety of emotions that they're not afraid to express, but men are a little bit different. But if you look at mankind as a whole, step on my toes with my morality and I'm going to get mad and lash out. You feel me? So that's where we see ourselves here in this culture as we follow religion rather than follow the words of God. Especially Christianity. The very first thing anyone will say when we tell them that we are following God's law in Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers and Genesis and Exodus, all those, well, that's been done away with. That was nailed to the cross. We no longer have to do that. Okay, well, regardless whether we have to or we don't, Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commands. Basically, in essence, saying, because you love me, you'll do what I said. Same thing as me with my children. When I tell them something, it's for their own good. Now, I'm not always that perfect father like God is, and sometimes I tell them things that may be incorrect, but nonetheless, I expect it to be followed. So does God. This is His creation. He gets to make the rules. Our job is to follow the rules. And this has nothing to do with salvation, mind you. This is Ephesians 2:8, saved by grace through faith. We're not talking about salvation. We're talking about being obedient children. 1 Samuel, or 2 Samuel, I believe, it says that disobedience is out of witchcraft. Rebellion is out of witchcraft. What is God telling us there? If you don't want to follow my commands, you're no different than the wicked, evil, those practicing witchcraft, diviners, and so on. Why would you want to be associated like that? Why would you want to be classified as that of witchcraft? Simply because you refuse to allow God to be sovereign, in a funny sense. Now, we don't allow God to do anything, of course. God does what He wills. But in our own minds, we think we can limit God to certain things. And it's utterly amazing to me that we think that. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't that long ago that I walked that same way. No, God, we're going to do it my way. And when I prayed, this is what you're going to do for me, God, and this is how you're going to do it, and this is why you're going to do it, and this is what I need, when I need it, how I need it. And if we're not careful, our prayers begin to look like that. I mean, just write your prayers down and then go back and read what you just said. And it'll begin to transform your thinking, and that begins to transform your heart. But it all begins with this word. And that's when you follow me on this channel, that's what I'm going to revert back to every single time. Are you following this word? Are you looking at this word? Because if you're not, you're just listening to other people talk about this word. It's no different than a doctor prescribing me medicine and me not taking the medicine. Going to the pharmacy, picking up the medicine, putting it in my medicine cabinet or my medicine bag, and leaving it there. If I don't read this word, I'm not taking my medicine. And we are sick. Each and every human is sick, and we need a doctor. We need that physician, the great physician, which is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. But we still think we know more than God. And bet this, even when I'm in my word, I still have certain selfish tendencies that if I do not keep in check, I act no differently. Nor the best of us. If we do not daily check ourselves and make sure that, like it says in verse 10 of Proverbs chapter 7, and look, a woman met him dressed like a whore with a hidden heart, boisterous and stubborn. Her feet did not stay at her house. This false system, this false church system, is going to come find you, and she's going to sound good, she's going to look good, and you're going to stray away from your spouse and go and follow after her because it sounds good. Be very careful who you listen to. Guard your ears, guard your heart, guard your eyes. Like I've said before, me and mine no longer watch TV. We've done away with the TV. Every now and again we will watch a movie that I have made sure is good to watch. Because everything we hear and everything we see changes our look on our day-to-day lives. Don't believe me? Go watch a bunch of movies where they're cussing and whatnot and killing each other, and see if you don't find yourself mimicking that to an extent. What we hear is what we do. What we see is what we do. So if we fill our hearts and we fill our minds, like it says in verse 6, for at the window of my house I looked through my lattice, and I saw among the simple, perceived among the youths, a man lacking heart, passing through the street near her corner. If I don't go around a whorehouse, you're never going to catch me falling and tripping and being and going in there and paying for that, if I never go around it. But if I continue to walk by it and check it out every day, eventually one day I'm going to trip, stumble, and fall. You can't catch me drinking if I don't ever go into the bar. I won't ever find myself tripping up if I don't go to the bar, don't go to the store where there's alcohol. Hang out with people that just constantly drink. I won't ever find myself drinking. But let me go start hanging out in the bar, thinking that I'm going to do right, and I'm going to save someone, I'm going to save a sinner, and then I find myself, I drank. Now, I'm not saying drinking is bad. For me, drinking is bad because I have an addictive spirit, and it wouldn't take me long. I'd be back to a 30-pack a day and a fifth of vodka a day, every day, just like I was when I laid it down, when the Lord took it from me. Guarding ourselves. Verse 17 says, I've sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloe, and cinnamon. That's a counterfeit. I'm not going to get into that too much, but think about what was given to Christ at his birth. And it was not aloe and cinnamon. Myrrh was one of them. So see, all it takes is just one part of truth to be compromised, and it becomes a whole lie. So that's all I'm going to get into this morning. This video's got a little bit long, so I hope y'all can be blessed, be encouraged, and be frustrated. Go read this for yourself. I'm actually back at the beginning of Psalms. Read Psalms chapter 1 today and see what it says about good and evil. We gotta draw a line in the sand. We gotta pick a square. It's either all God or it's all the world. And to have the world is enmity with God. That's in 1 John. So y'all be blessed, be encouraged, and be frustrated. This oil-filled disciple. I will catch you on the next ride.